The cowboy named Gray had never seen a blue sky or a green leaf or a yellow flower. His world was made of black and white and gray since the day he was born 40 years ago. A rare condition called achromatopsia stole every color from his eyes before he opened them. Gray learned to read sunsets by temperature and ripened apples by their weight in his hand. He never missed what he never had until a painter named Chroma drove up his dusty road. She came to capture the Montana prairie in oils for a gallery show back in the city. Gray watched her mix cadmium yellow with ultramarine blue and asked what she was doing. Chroma said, "I am making green for the grass. Can you not see it?" He shook his head no. She put down her brush and looked at his gray eyes and said, "What do you see right now?" Gray pointed and said, "Dark shapes where the trees are and light shapes where the sun hits." Chroma felt her heart crack open because she had never met anyone living inside a photograph. She asked him what color he wished he could see most, and he said red without hesitation. "Why red?" She asked, and he said, "Because blood is red, and so are roses, and so are sunsets at the edge." Chroma smiled and said, "Red is the color of anger and passion, and the inside of a ripe tomato." She held his hand and placed it over her heart and said, "Red also feels like this." A steady, warm thump. Gray felt her heartbeat, and his fingers tingled as if seeing a color through his skin for the first time. He whispered, "Is that what red is? A heartbeat? Then I have been seeing red my whole life without knowing." Chroma laughed and said, "No, that is love. Love is not a color. Love is what happens when colors matter." She stayed on his ranch for 2 weeks painting landscapes, while he watched her mix impossible colors from tubes. Gray asked her to name each color as she used it, and he memorized their names like a foreign language. He learned that cerulean was the sky before noon, and that burnt umber was the bark of the cottonwood tree. But red remained a mystery because no amount of naming could make his eyes register its wavelength. Chroma painted a single red poppy on a small canvas and held it in front of his gray eyes. Gray squinted and tilted his head and said, "I see nothing but a dark blob against a lighter background." She wanted to cry, but instead she said, "Then I will show you red another way because I refuse to give up." Chroma went to town and bought a simple cotton dress, the color of fire engines and ripe cherries and Valentine hearts. She put it on and stood in front of Gray as the sunset painted the barn behind her in golden light. Gray stared at her, and his mouth fell open because something was different, but he could not name it. He said, "You are glowing. Not like light. Glowing like warmth that has a shape. What color is that dress?" Chroma whispered, "It is red. The reddest red I could find. Are you seeing it? Tell me what you see." Gray reached out and touched the fabric of her sleeve, and then looked at his own fingers as if they were new. He said, "I do not see red, but I see something I have never seen before. A brightness that has temperature." Chroma took his hand and placed it on her chest over her heart and said, "That brightness is me looking at you." Gray felt her heartbeat fast and strong, and he looked at her face and saw tiny differences he could not explain. He whispered, "Your cheeks are darker than your forehead. Is that red? Is that the color of blood under skin?" Chroma nodded with tears falling and said, "Yes, that is red. You are seeing red on my face because I am blushing." Gray touched her cheek and said, "Red is beautiful. Red is the most beautiful thing I have ever not seen properly." She kissed him gently, and he felt the warmth spread from his lips to his ears and then down to his chest. He pulled back and said, "Is that red too? That feeling? Because it feels like the dress looks even though I cannot see it." Chroma laughed and said, "That is love wearing a red dress. You are feeling what my eyes see every time I look at you." Gray asked her to never take off that dress, and she said she would wear red every day if it helped him see. He told her about his mother who died when he was 10 and how she described sunsets as melted crayons. Chroma painted him a sunset using every red she owned and hung it above his bed so he could touch it every morning. Gray would run his fingers over the textured paint and say, "This is what you looked like when you first smiled at me." After 6 months, he still could not see green grass or blue sky, but he could see red when it was on her lips or cheeks. Doctors had no explanation, but Gray did not care because one color was enough when that color was her. He proposed to her in the same spot where she had first asked what he saw, and he had said dark shapes and light shapes. Gray said, "I still see mostly gray, but you have painted red into every corner of my world without using any paint." Chroma said yes and added, "You have taught me that colors are not in the eyes, but in the courage to describe them." They got married in a simple ceremony, and Chroma wore the same red dress, and Gray wore a gray suit he could actually see. Their wedding photographs were in black and white because Gray requested them that way so he could see his own joy. The photographer thought it was an artistic choice, but Chroma knew it was the only way her husband could witness their love. On their first anniversary, Gray woke up and looked at the sunrise and saw a thin line of orange between the gray clouds. He screamed for Chroma and pointed and said, "That is orange. I see orange. It is like red but hungry." Chroma ran outside barefoot and cried because a cowboy was slowly learning the alphabet of light after 40 years. Each year he gained a new color until by their 10th anniversary he could see the full spectrum like everyone else. Doctors called it a miracle, but Gray called it love because Chroma had refused to let him live inside a photograph forever. They had 2 children, and Gray taught them to appreciate colors by telling them how he saw nothing and then everything. His daughter asked, "Daddy, what was your favorite color before you could see?" And he said, "Red, always red." She asked why, and he pointed at her mother standing in the garden wearing a crimson apron over her white dress. "That is why," Gray said, "because red is the color of the woman who painted my world without touching a single canvas." Chroma overheard and dropped her watering can and ran into his arms, and they stood there until the sunset turned the whole sky red. They grew old together, and Gray never stopped thanking her for a dress she bought at a small town store for $20. When he died at 92, Chroma wore that same red dress to his funeral, and everyone asked why she chose such a bright color. She said, "Because it is the only color he ever truly saw, and I want him to see it from wherever he is now." Chroma buried the dress with him and wore only gray for the rest of her life as a quiet tribute to his first 40 years. She survived him by 2 years, and their daughter buried her next to Gray with a paintbrush in her hand and a tube of red paint. The gravestone reads, "He saw no color until she wore red. Then he saw everything. Then he saw forever." Every year, couples leave red dresses at their grave as a symbol of love that refuses to accept the limits of biology. Gray and Chroma proved that sight is not about retinas, but about someone willing to stand in front of you and say, "This is beautiful." If you feel like you are living in grayscale, find someone who will paint your world one color at a time without ever holding a brush. Subscribe to Stories Hub Official for more emotional Western romances that prove love is the most vivid color of all. Share this video with someone whose smile added a new color to your life, even if you did not notice it at first.